So last week, I saw one battle after another, and the next day, I analyzed the entire film. But upon reflection, the topic that I feel like I could have gone into way more depth with is the Christmas Adventurers Club. What does this group represent symbolically for American government, politics, history, Christianity, and discrimination? And does something like the Christmas Adventurers Club truly exist in real life? So in this video, I'll be doing a Christmas Adventurers Club deep dive. We'll discuss their role in the movie and their mission, the symbolic reason for their name, their inspiration in the novel, including the American history and immigration, their racist remarks, the meaning of Hail Saint Nick, their symbolic relationship with Lockjaw, and the real secret cult that this group shares quite a few similarities with, and so much more. Hope you enjoy. I guess the best thing to do to start this video is define the Christmas Adventurers Club in the movie. The Christmas Adventurers Club is a Masonic cult network of powerful business, government, and political professionals who in secret influence military, government, politics, immigration, business, economics, etc. across the country. And the true core mission of this far-right secret society is white supremacy. And people may ask, if their goal is so terrible, why is their name so endearing and innocent? Well, on one hand, from a much more practical standpoint, the innocent name is used to maintain their low profile as they discuss their very large-scale, sinister plans for the country. But on the other hand, from a much more thematic standpoint, the name carries a lot of symbolism and social commentary, so let's unpack that. The name Christmas Adventurers Club is of course pretty ironic. It evokes warmth, togetherness, and tradition for a group that is as evil and discriminatory as can be. And this contradiction in their title is purposeful for the film because this group is meant to represent the irony of right-wing extremism in some governments, politics, and media throughout American history. And throughout this video, we'll go through many examples of the irony they demonstrate in the movie. But for me to really capture what the Christmas Adventurers Club represents as a whole, I need to go back into some American political history, and then eventually I'll swing back around to the Christmas Adventurers Club in the movie to encapsulate their entire thematic message and commentary. So just bear with me for a brief moment, because I think when it comes back around, it becomes very clever and interesting. So according to the movie's writer-director, Paul Thomas Anderson, the main inspiration for the film is a novel called Vineland. Vineland, similarly to One Battle After Another, is a story about counterculture revolutionaries in the 60s who fought for civil rights, ending the Vietnam War, and any form of state oppression in America. The novel takes place in the 1980s, but flashes back to the 60s when the revolutionaries were fighting in full effect, and then once again returns to the 80s where the revolutionaries had been disassembled and beaten and burnt out by the state, very much like the movie. But by this book taking place in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, it was more importantly a commentary on how these left-wing movements were destroyed not only by excessive force, but by highly effective strategies in rebranding. So specifically during Richard Nixon's presidency in the 60s and 70s, and Ronald Reagan's presidency in the 80s, there was a highly persistent effort to end left-wing movements with methods of punishment that were severe and unforgiving. And the way these governments would justify this forceful approach of control is they would repackage it in their campaigns and media for the public. The message, especially in the Reagan campaign, was that we would be brought back to a better time, returning us to a safer, warmer, tightly knit country where our people would be protected from the chaos and danger of particular communities, groups, and movements. A promise from the president to take us back to a more traditional America, often including sentimental Christmas iconography. And I'm sure you can see now how the Christmas Adventurers Club takes on that same branding. Of course, pushed to a much more extreme, satirical level, very much in the spirit of Vineland's author, Thomas Pynchon. And by Paul Thomas Anderson offering his spin on Pynchon's story through a modern lens, he's communicating to us that these right-wing political strategies of rebranding particular left-wing movements and promising to bring us back to a much happier, warmer, patriotic time are still happening 40 to 60 years later. And I just want to say, this video isn't meant for me to push any sort of personal political message. I'm just commentating on what I think this director is saying with this very political movie about current events. And I must reiterate that this film is largely an exaggerated satire. It's not always a direct reflection of our current reality. So overall, the Christmas Adventures Club is a satirical symbol of an extreme right-wing philosophy. The club stands for the idea of repackaging oppression and discrimination into wholesome American culture and tradition. That's the reason for the blatant comedic irony in their speech and presentation. And this symbolism is signified in even more detail as we get to listen in on some of these meetings with the Christmas Adventures Club. For example, when Lockjaw is about to be inducted before his background check, they tell him, "Our mission is to get haters, lunatics, and punk trash and stop them." This is the kind of terminology historically that politicians and political speakers have used to soften and therefore sell their objectives of targeting particular groups in America. Also, I mentioned part of this in my previous video, but I want to expand by saying the Christmas Adventures Club describes minorities in a way where they are lesser, yet also in many ways imply these minorities are integral in holding the country together economically. For example, they talk about the Mexican chicken factory workers like they're worthless, but urgently need them back when they hear Lockjaw halted the factory's operations. The club has members who are stakeholders in this factory, which can't run on its exploitatively low total cost if these low-wage Mexican workers aren't there. And another thing I mentioned previously, the Christmas Adventures Club is named after a Christian holiday, a religion that's meant to express togetherness and forgiveness, but is also an angle that can be abused by some right-wing political voices to justify the exclusion of particular groups, which includes remarks, actions, and policies rooted in homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia. And the use of the call "Hail Saint Nick" is the most extreme satirical emphasis of that abuse of Christianity. Also, very obviously, there's a demonic element in that phrase, which will certainly come into play a little later on in this video. And this political sentiment of cleaning up the country and stopping the bad guys aims to garner the votes and support of lifelong Americans who feel forgotten, underappreciated, or pushed out by the emerging younger generation and growing racial diversity within the country. And I think this target demographic American is signified by the individual who wants to become a member of the group, Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw. I mentioned this in my previous video, but it fits perfectly for this video as well. Lockjaw is always framed in this isolated manner, often alone, often in wide open spaces, often being spoken down to by his enemies and patronized by his superiors. And what's created is this desperate cry and claw to finally fit in and be accepted. And the Christmas Adventures Club, like these political campaigns, makes him feel seen, remembered, and appreciated. He's literally tearing up when he's told he's being inducted into the group. This intense desire to be included also pulls him away from his love for a black woman and a black daughter, which we clearly see he is desperately suppressing. And now, having discussed much of the political symbolism this group holds, it brings us to the next big question. Does anything like the Christmas Adventures Club exist in our real world? So, as far-fetched and surreal as the Christmas Adventures Club may seem in the movie, the concept is actually not as far away from reality as you may think. A very fair, real-life comparable example is the Bohemian Grove, a highly exclusive club of elite, rich, powerful men who meet in the woods very mysteriously. It's a restricted campground in Monterey, California, called the Bohemian Grove, founded in 1878. Very similarly to the Christmas Adventures Club, this secret club was run by only the most prominent business leaders, government officials, senior media executives, and former US presidents. And the two most prominent presidents being Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, precisely the two presidents targeted by Thomas Pynchon in his book, Vineland. And what the Grove members were publicly known to do was simply attend these 2-week retreats every July for all members to collaborate in discussing the status and future of politics, culture, discovery, and innovation. It was an opportunity to network and bond as leaders, often through these strange rituals. But of course, because the club was so secretive and secluded, conspiracy theories have grown pretty wildly to suggest there were more sinister intentions at work, and this club may be a secret government invisibly guiding the country. And there are countless rumors and mysteries around this group involving white supremacy, devil worship, and forced disappearances, which are all things we see the Christmas Adventures Club demonstrate in this movie. And on top of all of this, the Grove has been infamous for its male exclusivity and extremely limited racial diversity. But overall, I have to clarify, a lot of this is theory by outsiders. I don't think Paul Thomas Anderson created the Christmas Adventures Club to accuse the Bohemian Grove of such atrocious behavior and actions. I have no proof of that. I scoured the internet and haven't read or heard him or his cast members go into any depth about the club. I'm just creating this video to give my interpretation of what it seemed like PTA was trying to reflect in history, politics, civil rights, and current events with his movie. So as a whole, the Christmas Adventures Club is designed to reflect prejudice and inequality hiding in plain sight, alive and well in our media and current culture. Discrimination so neatly wrapped in nostalgia that when you manage to see it, it becomes funny. Alright, this is my analysis. I hope this video doesn't come across as a political video, just my interpretation and theories on a very political film itself. But please, don't be afraid to share your thoughts and questions. I'm particularly eager to hear what you have to say on this one. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.